Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another exciting episode of 31 Days of Indie Horror. I'm your host, Jonathan Moody. I've got my awesome guest. She was on here earlier, like earlier in this year. She was also, I think you were in the second season as well. I don't think you were in the first season, but I think you were in the second season. You're in this season, right? If I'm correct. Do you remember? We've done a lot, so I don't.
Right. I'll come on here as often as you want, Jonathan.
Okay, good. Well, please welcome Liz Fletcher. How you doing, Liz?
I'm good. How are you today, Jonathan?
Good. It's just you and I. We did the last time we did with Jason Zalakis. That was awesome. That was a lot of fun talking about Death Rink. But now we're going to talk about what was that?
I said that movie. I was telling somebody today, the poster was so good for that film. And
Yeah, too good for that film, maybe. Right? Like that film was not that great, but the poster, that was awesome.
it drags you in.
Definitely. And so we're here to talk about Late Fee, which I'm guessing you had never heard of before.
I've usually not heard of the movies that you watch for the podcast.
You know what's funny is I like unless it's an IFC episode, like the 31 Days of Indie Horror is generally blind buys things, like I see it on Tubi and I'm like, all right, we'll do this one. And it's funny, I know people who worked on this movie. So it's weird. Yeah. So earlier this year, Paul and I interviewed Victor Bonacore. So you can listen to that interview on Indie Film Cafe Spotlight. And Victor worked for Media Blasters, who made this movie.
Right.
And Victor even gets a credit in the beginning of the movie for, I guess, I think he was some kind of producer on it. And Jimmy Screamer Claus, who I remember from a while back, I was friends with him, still friends with him on Facebook, but we haven't conversed in a long time. But me and him were, like I know those guys, and I think that's it. I think everybody else I'm not familiar necessarily with. There's nobody that I watch generally in it, and so it. How would you describe this movie? Like if you had to give somebody a synopsis.
So the main story is this couple, it's Halloween night, and rather than going out to a Halloween party or function.
No, not just because they weren't invited, they said. Nobody invited them to one, and that was kind of what they were sad about.
He seemed disappointed. He didn't really seem to care as much. But they were going to rent the scariest movies they possibly could and watch them on Halloween night.
Mm-hmm.
So they go to this special Halloween horror films store, which actually I looked into it. It's actually owned by the people who are Media Blasters out in New Jersey. So they ask the owner of the store to help them pick out some films. He finds, he has a couple of recommendations, but then they find these two films and he's just very adamant, I can't let you watch those. Those were not supposed to be put on the show.
Of course, those are it's a typical, you're not supposed to watch this, so don't watch this. It's like The Ring. They tell you do not look at the videotape of The Ring. What do people do? They're like, oh, let's check it out anyway,
So they supposedly sign an agreement, which is kind of weird for a video store. And the owner,
you sign that sort of thing in the beginning, like, when you sign up for a video store. What was that?
I mean, that's true, but not for an individual film.
Right.
I would be kind of wary about that. But anyway, so he says, whatever you do, you have to have these films back by midnight. And at this point, it's like, what is that, like 10:30 at night?
Right.
So they're supposed to drive home, watch these movies, and have them home by midnight. I feel like he knew what was going to happen before they even left the store. So, anyways, they take these videos home and DVDs, and it's kind of like a twisted kind of Tales from the Crypt kind of thing, I think was their aim. But I don't know. That I loved the whole video store synopsis, but the little short films themselves were just god awful. They were
So
atrocious.
yeah, it's an anthology film. So it has
Right.
three stories. It has the wraparound story, which is like the video store slash
Yeah.
them watching the movie and then what happens afterwards. And so you see them throughout the whole movie. And then you've got the two movies that are the scariest movies on earth. And I'm just like, I seriously hate when people are like, these are the scariest movies. You shouldn't watch this. And I'm like, I mean, because it's really hard to make like the scariest film of all time, you know? But like
Right.
these were pretty boring in comparison to like what I would typically be scared of or whatever.
Yeah. It was really um I don't know. I really liked the whole synopsis, like rolling these two short films into this bigger film, but they were just awful.
All right, let's talk. Let's go into it because I want to
Oh
go into them really badly. I
yeah.
can't wait. So, like the beginning of it, they talk about it's about a hitchhiker, a woman hitchhiker, and he's like sold, and I'm like, all right. And she's not a hitchhiker. She's waiting for this guy,
Right.
right? So, but you don't know that when she first picks him up. It looks like she's hitchhiking. And then eventually they start talking about, okay, we're going to be going, meeting up like, did you get my email about blah, blah, you know what I mean? Like it sets up that they're already going to be, like, what is it? Uh, fucking they like she's a hooker, right? And that was okay, all right. And so she goes to like this, she tells him that she's got a place that they can go to. It cost him nothing, which I guess he was so happy with. I would have still been like, nah, let's go to somewhere else, because that just sounds shady.
Well, right from the beginning, this woman just kind of, okay, so granted, I've never been a hooker, I've never picked up a hooker, but the whole exchange when he initially picks her up is very strange. Like, what is she? She asks if she can smoke in the car. He says, yeah, at first, but then, oh, wait, it's my wife's car. And then she says, well, would your wife mind if I took a piss in your car? And I was like, what? What is I would have I would have pulled the car over, been like, bitch, get out.
I know, like she is
It
such
was
a strange
scary.
woman, period. But I guess that was the point, you know?
Yeah, you got to add a little quirkiness into it.
I If that's what you
Speaking
call it.
of quirk, this guy, this attendant at the motel,
This guy right here,
ah, like I got some like Jim Carrey vibes off of him.
wannabe Jim Carrey.
Like
Like
like the Wish version of Jim Carrey.
the Wish version. Yes, that's exactly.
Hard not to laugh right now, but it makes me laugh harder. Okay.
I'm gonna say something. I hope it doesn't make you laugh too hard, but the Make a Wish Jim Carrey, more
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah.
He was terrible, but he sort of, at least he made it more fun for me, you know.
Yes. Yes. He was definitely some I don't know if it could quite be called comic relief,
Hmm.
but it added a little relief.
Well, they're both in both shorts.
Right.
They're like the main stars of both shorts. So well,
I just caught that now that you said that.
Oh, you didn't realize it?
No.
I only realized it, and maybe I probably would have realized it if I hadn't. But when I was looking up the IMDb when I was
Yeah.
watching it, I was like, oh snap. The she's playing two roles, he plays two roles. They must be two roles in the movies, because as I see it, what happened was Media Blasters made two short films, and then they're
Right.
like, what are we going to do with these two short films? Right? Let's put them into like a bigger, larger, like, anthology, which
Which I like that idea.
I like it too. We're doing that with Scream Queen Campfire, and we did that with Scary Story Slumber Party. I mean, if you're going to make a bunch of shorts, you might as well put them into something instead of leave them as shorts, because who wants to just watch short films,
Right.
Um, but
I don't know. I've got a 9-year-old girl that spends a lot of time watching scary short films on YouTube.
wow, all right. Well, there you go. Like they're
Yeah.
like those are like the 4-minute ones that are like there, right? Like specifically.
Uh, and they're really scary too. There's some scary ones out there on YouTube.
Which is funny because they're scarier than the movie that claims to be these are the scariest films. And
I know. I know.
what was the first one called? The second one was called Damnation, which they made some shitty joke on it, or whatever. But like
Was shoot was I want to say pickup, which I
Pickup, the
don't think
pickup.
that's right.
Yes.
Was it right? Is that right?
Yes, the pickup. You're right. So, which I guess sort of makes sense for it. But anyway, she brings him back to this skeezy motel, and he's already not digging it like at all, And apparently he wants her to do some role playing stuff, but she didn't. She lost the, she didn't look at the script, and everything. And so
He
it
should
was.
he should have just gone on Tinder.
Mm,
Just saying.
yeah, would have probably had better luck. But the problem is, I guess his wife could have caught him. I don't know. I don't know how he got away with this, especially sending emails. Like
Yeah.
that's
Weird.
not no. No. But anyway, so he ends up, you know, uh, I guess they end up going at it, and then she turns into this tentacle woman, and then murders him. Like there's other little stuff that kind of delays the movie for a while, and I'm just like, all right, let's get to the horror, like
Yeah.
this movie's getting boring. Like I don't care about. I hated the guy. Like I don't hate the actor. Like I don't know the actor. Actor was probably pretty good because he annoyed the shit out of me as a character. Like his character
Right.
was just so obnoxious and boring. You know. What did you think of him?
Well, and from an actor's standpoint, sometimes there's only so much you can do with a script. I mean, you could have had Robert De Niro in that role, but if you've got a really just kind of crappy script, I don't know. I thought
Here's
he did okay.
Yeah, here's the difference. Robert De Niro wouldn't do that. Not even if you were like, I'm gonna do
Yeah.
a movie for
Yeah.
free.
Well, I mean,
You know,
yes, you're true. Yeah, you're
he would have
right.
been like, this
Right.
script is terrible. I'm not doing it. And
Right.
and you know what? Honestly, this is gonna sound terrible, but here's a tip for actors: you can turn work down, and
Yes.
it's not like you can't people are just so afraid, like if I say no to this person, they're never going to cast me in their movie and stuff or whatever ever again, so I have to agree. And then you're in a dog shit movie that like, and I'm
You're
not saying
better.
this is a dog shit movie, I'm just saying, like, because I
Well,
mean it's not, it's maybe a step above dog shit. It's not, to me, it's not the worst. I've seen worse, films lately.
yeah.
Um
Well, the overall synopsis, the whole rental thing, I loved that part. I
mhm.
thought it was very good. The short films that they squeezed in there were just, oh, like the second one was even worse, I think. I
Second
mean,
one was
there was
boring.
like
Like
I just couldn't quite figure out what was going on. And sometimes that's good. Sometimes I love films where you're kind of in suspense and you're not quite sure what's happening. But this was just like
Hmm.
um they made a movie out of a really bad haunted house almost.
It's even weirder than that. They try to bring the occult and they try to do all this other shit with it, and
Yeah.
kidnapping and maybe sex trafficking and shit. And it's just like it was just too much stuff happening, and there was no real explanation for any of it by
Hmm.
the end of it. That, and I guess we'll get into that in a second. I guess we're closing up the this first short first, and the first short ends with the guy getting murdered, and then I guess she doesn't have anybody to kill right now, right? And then a car pulls around and asks for directions and stuff, and at first you think, oh, they're safe, they didn't go into the motel, but of course she wants a ride, you
Hmm.
know and I don't know, she just seemed really skeezy. I wouldn't, like, nah, I feel like you're gonna do drugs in my car or something. Nah, I don't want you,
Yeah.
like, in my car, because she did not seem like legit, like, somebody I could trust, even with like the look on her.
Right.
Um, but so yeah, she gets in the car and they drive off, and that's it. I guess the setup that she's gonna go and kill these guys next or whatever with her tentacles and stuff. I don't know how or why or whatever. It doesn't even matter. Um, I guess the idea is that there's a girl out there. There's still a girl out there that could be doing this shit. So don't trust hookers. That was my take from it. Like, don't buy a hooker and you might be safe, you know.
I don't
I mean,
know. My rule of thumb is kind of don't trust anybody, but that's another story for a different day.
guess what? I've got my thing right here. Can you read that?
Trust not. There you go.
Trust
Exactly.
no one.
You
This is from
just
the
never know.
International Spy Museum.
You just never know. It's a
Never know.
crazy world out there.
It is. People are watching this right now going, "Oh my God, should I trust them? Trust this review? Let me go check out Tubi and watch Late Fee and see if this movie's really as bad as they say it is.
Oh,
It's worse than you probably think. But anyway, and I
I,
feel bad because,
I
like I said, I know people who worked on it, and I bet
yeah.
even they would agree. This isn't the
Well,
greatest.
and I always like to IMDb I IMDb everything. And when I saw that my IMDb rating was better than anybody else that's in the cast of this, I was like, huh, that's kind
Yeah,
of weird. That's
and then
kind of a weird feeling.
this has got a 3.2 on the star meter on IMDb. That's not good. That's pretty low. That's out of
Somebody ga-
10.
somebody gave it a 10 but left it a horrible review.
Well, that sounds like something Paul would do, because like Paul loves bad movies, right? But
Yeah.
this would bore Paul, honestly. A, because he hates movies where a lot of like slashing and cutting up pretty girls and stuff, and the second short is more of like
Uh,
that. Um, the other thing, he'd just be bored. It's just sort of it's not interesting enough. There's not any for indie films. You just worked on Mothman, right?
mm,
Mothman is like a legend, and it's people know of it, and there's probably going to be a lot of craziness that happens in that movie, right? This movie just sort of had like nothing crazy really happened, and that
well, and
was
any structure or storyline to the at least the second short film, I felt like.
right. Um, so yeah, so it was sort of just like, you know. Um, but the second short, yeah. Well, and sometimes that doesn't have to happen. Like my first anthology, somebody told me that I had to, that Scary Story Slumber Party wasn't a good movie just because it didn't have themes that connected. And I'm like, it's short films. It's just people telling short stories. That's the connection. Like nobody in real life goes, okay, we're gonna all come up with the same theme when we're telling scary stories, or whatever, like, oh wow, that's like it doesn't happen that way. It's short films that they all came together. And this one sort of had that, like, where it's sort of didn't feel the same way. There's the connection is supposed to be that they're both the scariest movies in the world. And I was more hoping for like a Ring thing, where it would be a supernatural thing
Yeah,
that happens. Like if you're late, your TV gets invaded by a ghost that comes out and kills you or something, attacks you. You're They were late, so they came over, and we'll get to that. But it was
future idea maybe.
future idea. No, but see, late fee too. Maybe if they made a sequel, they could do that. However, they can't because there's no rental stores anymore. Really, there's very unless they want to do
That's
like a
true.
horror film that takes place at like one of the only rental stores that actually still exist these days, because there's very few. I actually used to go to one when I was in Van Nuys, when I was living in Van Nuys in 2020. I wonder if that's still around, because after 2020 hit, like COVID hit, I just kind of went on my own way and moved
Yeah,
away. So I never went back to that store. But I wonder if it still exists. It'd be interesting to go and see if, like, these stores still fucking, because a lot of them closed down, period.
right.
Just not making enough money. People are streaming, and that's Tubi.
Yeah.
Tubi's where it's at. That's where we watch this, you know. Um, but anyway, the second short, Damnation, this chick gets so yeah. So tell us a little bit about Damnation if you can.
Well, so this woman is driving along and she gets pulled over. She's not really sure why. She wasn't speeding. She wasn't sure if maybe she ran a light or something. And this woman in a horrible costume strutting down the roadway like she's on a runway in Paris, is the police officer pulling her over. So she takes her ID back to her police car, and then I may have fallen asleep at one point. But I mean, to be fair, I've been on some medication.
That's
Um,
not. That's not. That's. I mean,
but she ends up in this weird cell, and she's got this cellmate next to her, this woman who's pregnant, and I don't know. You're gonna have to explain the
okay.
rest because
So
it just got really weird and confusing to me. And it
okay,
wasn't just the medicines that I'm on.
maybe might have been some of that too, but it was also the movie. Movie was very confusing. So you're right. Like the woman comes down, she's a cop. It's the same woman from The Hooker. It's that woman right
Yes.
there. And she comes in, and yeah, she goes back to her cop car. Then she comes back and she puts the girl under arrest and takes her back to the cop car. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So she comes out there, and then she comes back to the girl's house or car and just starts like trashing everything, like she has, like, there's a cake and she just beats the cake. The girl's like, "What are you doing? I know my rights. What are you can't be doing this." And then she calls somebody to come. I guess gets called. They go and drive the car away, because I guess no evidence that this girl was like kidnapped by now. Okay, i I'm afraid of these kind of movies because that wasn't a real police, and they had a real police car, or whatever. So I'm wondering if, like, in real life, would the real police be driving by and be like, "Hey, I don't recognize that, those people. Like, what's going on here?" But then didn't happen. But like, there's got to be that little fear that somebody could, do that could happen.
Well, here's the thing. I feel like you always have to be smart and be safe and be on the lookout. I feel like if you see flashing lights ever, and as far as you know, you haven't been doing anything crazy, but you're in some kind of very remote area, I would keep driving until I come to some kind of populated place where there's other people.
Okay,
Possibly call 911 at the same time and tell them what's going on.
I'm gonna tell you a story, and I
Maybe
I, I haven't ever freaking told this like publicly, you know, online, but I'm gonna say it, and obviously there's no names attached or anything like that, so there's nothing, But I was on my way. I was driving down the road on whatever it was from Texas to like Oklahoma, right? Remember, I don't think I told you this story when I was hanging out with you that time in Kentucky, but this literally happened. So I'm driving down the road and I get pulled over. And I was like, uh-oh, was my lights out? Did I speed a little bit? Like, cause and I was following too closely to a big truck, thing. That was one thing. And there was something else. I forgot. Maybe I went like a little bit over the speed limit, but it wasn't like 10 miles over speed limit or anything crazy. It was just a little bit over. And so I was like, oh, okay. And then the cop asked me to come into his car. And it's a guy cop. And I'm like, oh God, am I gonna die?
did
Because
you do
like
it?
I did. Because I was scared to say no. Because I didn't know if he would just like write me up a ticket right there or like beat me up or whatever, Like I didn't know what would happen. So I did it.
I wouldn't have.
Well, it was a girl, you definitely would have, right? Girls, they say no, absolutely not. Like I'll stand here, and if you have to arrest me, that's different. I'll be in the back of the car. But like, so anyway, I
Oh,
went, I went, and I was next to him, and we talked, and then he let me go. It was the most awkward thing. The whole time I kept thinking, is he gonna pull out his dick and like say suck it? Like literally, that's what I was thinking. And I was like, that was all that was in my head the whole time, going, oh
I
God.
never know.
Yeah.
Because what could you have done?
I, I would have said, yeah, I don't know. That would have like even been worse because I don't know what I could have done, you know?
About it, but nobody would have believed you.
What?
I said if you had to do something like that, like if he had told you to do that, what would you have done? It's not like anybody would have believed you,
Yeah,
right?
if you said, I'm gonna tell your your boss or whatever, they'd be like, yeah, all right. Like it's my word against yours. Like there's
Yeah.
no proof of anything. So it was weird. But he literally let me go. He talked to me. He asked me what I was doing, blah, 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 blah. And then he said, you can go. And that was it. And so when I watched this scene and all this stuff happening, that's literally what came in my mind is like the PTSD flashbacks of
Gosh.
that moment. And I was on the phone like right beforehand. I was also on the phone, speakerphone, but I was on the phone with my friend Jackie, who was my former roommate and everything. And I told her what happened like right after. I was like, oh my God. She was like, Jonathan, why did you go in? And I was like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. Like, I was scared to like say like no to anything, like to a cop, like do you and I know that was my right to say no, like absolutely. But I was just like too afraid, like if I did that, he could have beat me up or he could have did some kind of abuse. And this is why people are afraid of cops, you know, because like if I were a girl and he had to ask that, she would have said no, absolutely. and she would have every right in the world, and he would have probably give her a ticket, and higher ticket than what he normally would have gave her and shit, and then she could have brought it up in court, but he would be like, I didn't do that, you know,
Yeah.
like it's just like, it's crazy, man.
I don't think most cops are like that, to be fair.
Also in Virginia, we have the what was known as the Parkway Killer. Did you ever hear of this?
No.
The Parkway Killer was a guy that would come to the parkways and he would see like people parked, or whatever, and he would knock on their thing dressed up like a cop, you know, and tell them whatever, and then he would kill them. And they found out later he must have been a cop because a lot of people were stopped or whatever, and most likely that's what literally happened. And so that kind of terrifies me in the way that that guy could have been a killer, could have killed me, could have made me suck his dick, could have made anything, and at this rate, what the fuck am I supposed to do? I mean, I don't know.
Horse and drive away as fast as you can.
And then he pulls me over again. Like,
Well, I mean, it depends on whose gas tank runs out first.
I guess, anyway. Oh man, it was crazy for Kitab. I know I was wrong. I should have like just been nothing happened, which made it even weirder.
Well, and it's easier to say what you should do in a situation like that when you're not actually in it.
Like
But
after
I
the
think
fact.
every person gets nervous when they get pulled over. It's just natural.
I definitely am because I'm hardly ever pulled over. I don't think you haven't ridden with me, but I drive slow as shit. I drive the speed limit, if not a little bit above it. Like, and everybody's always like, "Oh my God,
No,
drive faster," and I don't want to because I always get pulled over if I go too fast. Like if I'm even going like a couple miles over the speed limit, I get pulled over. So it's crazy. Oh,
best here.
yes, he wants to be on the video.
Are you trying to be on the podcast?
Oh,
Oh my goodness. Here's my
yes.
blow.
Um, did he watch the movie with you?
I don't know. Coco, he's probably sleeping.
No. Well, that movie will do it to him.
Yeah, I
Um,
think that's good.
so it did it to you too.
I didn't mean to, honestly.
I,
I haven't gotten
I,
up very much and made a trip to Walmart earlier today. And as soon as I came back, I tried to watch the movie, but that trip to Walmart just took everything out of me right now.
well, I mean, to be fair, I probably looked at my phone a lot more than I should have. And not, whatever, if you say that's a bad thing, but like, 'cause some people, pay attention to the movie, but like the movie already like lost me when the girl got arrested for nothing, and then she gets sent to this place and there's this warden who's apparently also the judge, and he tells, and there's already a trial for something, and she keeps asking like, what did I do, and they're not telling her. I'm like, I mean, I understand if you're being basically trafficked, you can't, like the rules of the outside world do not apply, you know,
Right.
right? But like it was just strange. Like it was trying to, I think it was trying to say something, and I just didn't get it. And then later there was demons and other people with masks on and stuff. I don't know what was going on. So
I thought it was weird when they took her to this hotel room, which was probably the same hotel room.
you're the one behind
And
them. No.
we're making a movie, and I just like think the funniest thing was when I think it was supposed to be the director, just took a gun out all of a sudden and just shot everybody. And I was like, I'm sure there have been directors on films that have wanted to do that to everybody. It was weird. So weird.
The whole movie was a little strange and out
But
there.
like
And
I did like um the late fee idea, the rental thing, the whole, because I mean actually really enjoyed the last scene. It was really cheesy where the video store owner and all these other people in masks just show up. Um, I mean, it was weird, but it was kind of campy. It was entertaining.
yeah, and even before that, with them doing that. Okay, so you have kids, and everything. What time do they do trick or treating? Like, what time does trick or treating end?
I think it's usually like 6 to 8,
Right.
6, 8:30ish.
Yeah, right. Why were people trick or treating at 10 o'clock at night?
Because they're up to no good. That's why.
Well, they were throwing stuff at the people and everything, like, the candies or whatever and I'm like, you're wasting candy. What are you doing? You know,
Right?
it's not like they give you like the little peanuts, the little circus peanuts and stuff, like things like that I'd throw at them, but or candy
Yeah.
corn, but I'm not a huge fan of candy corn, or the circus peanuts. I think they're
It's not my
terrible.
favorite.
But
Yeah, those are
those are what?
gross.
Pretty gross. But anyway, I don't know. All in all, the rental store part was fun. The other two shorts, not as much fun. And once again, when you're making a movie and you say these are the scariest movies of all time, try to make them as scary as you can possibly make them. But literally, it was, and even those characters did not seem scared at
Yeah.
all. I'm like, this is pretty lame. Um, but yeah, they told them 10 o'clock at night because the rental store was closed. To midnight. They only had that chance to watch them, and I'm like, who fucking rents shorts? By the way, like, have you ever rented a short?
Never.
I think I might have rented one short film, maybe, and that was I think that could have been the George Lucas in Love or something. But I mean, other than that, I don't think I've ever rented any shorts because, like, that seems like a waste of money, you
Yeah.
know. And I mean, I get it if you only have 2 hours, to kill. Ha ha ha, pun intended. Aw. You said name Coco?
Yeah, he's super snuggly.
Well, he's probably,
Ruby,
no,
Ruby's over here. She's dozing,
there you go.
but Coco's the one. He's like a fungus. He just.
It's got to latch on to you.
Oh
So
my
yeah,
god.
well, I guess, is there anything else you wanted to add on this? Was there anything specific to it?
I don't. So I don't know what the budget was. So I did look it up on IMDb, and I know it will usually say what the budget for the film was. So I don't know what the budget was. But I feel like even if you don't have a huge budget, you can still do a lot with a little. And I just didn't feel like, I don't know, I felt like a lot of it was just kind of half-assed.
Yeah, it just kind of felt like these were two short films that were rushed or made for fun with their friends. And then they're like, let's put it
Yeah.
onto this. And like, they had to make something fun with the wraparound. And I like that. I did like the late fee stuff. If more of that was the thing, like, I guess more of the idea that, like, you know, like, what I thought it was gonna be, and because I didn't read what it was about, I just saw that it was called Late Fee, and that there was a DVD with like blood coming out of it and stuff, and I was like, okay, so just, and I thought it was going to be a slasher. Like I thought literally
Yeah.
you forget to return a movie, somebody comes and kills you. Like a video store that tells you better return it on time or you're dead. And people don't believe that, and then they end up getting killed. Now that's a cool movie idea. So
Yeah.
somebody else should make that. Sadly, they'd have to take place in the year 2000 something, early 2000, because there's no more there's no more stores anymore.
People like vintage feel movies and
Nostalgia.
yeah, absolutely.
Well, and the thing is, video stores, so they went away like after like Blockbuster crashed and whatnot, and mom and pop ones were going because Redbox opened up, or you get them online, you get streaming, and so
Get mail.
yeah, you get them in the mail. The mail
That's
thing, I mean, that kind of sucks because you have to wait a couple days or whatever for, or one day at least. You can't get it. Like if you go to the video store, you can get it and watch it that night. You know,
yeah.
if you stream it, you can watch it that night. But I don't know. All in all, this could have had some really cool shit, but I just feel like it had a great idea and just didn't then pull through.
Yeah, I agree.
Kind of boring. But everybody, if you get a chance to watch it, please let us know what you think. If you didn't get to watch it, you just heard a review, that's fine because literally, then don't watch it. Like you just
You're
heard
not
pretty.
missing anything.
You're not, and I don't normally do that. Like I don't want people not to watch the movie because like even then, I'm telling you, you can watch it on Tubi if you want.
Yeah,
But the thing is, if it's kind of meh, kind of boring, kind of like there really was no point to it, I can't really recommend it. Um,
right.
if it's so terrible, it's fun,
That's
like
different. Yeah.
like that guy putting 10, what was it, 10 stars in it or whatever, and saying, and then trashing it. That sounds like he had a fun time hating the movie.
I don't know.
But
His review didn't sound like he had a fun time. I was like, does this guy know how these reviews work? Because I literally think that's what he did. Like
he just went, he thought it was like
I
well,
don't
he was
know.
listening to our stinkometer. Stinkometer is like 10.
Yeah,
Remember?
maybe that's what it was because he didn't seem like he enjoyed it. Like it wasn't a review where he's like, this movie's so bad, it's good. It wasn't that kind of a review. So
It was this movie so
I
bad it's bad and don't watch it.
or maybe he was on some of the meds that I've been taking the last week.
He's like, wait, do I do 1 or 10 if I hated it? I'll do 10. Why not?
Oh man.
Well, this has been fun. This is a good one. If everybody checks this out, and I'll be back tomorrow with a brand new episode. But thank you, Liz, for joining me tonight because this
Of
was
course.
this was a
Thanks for having.
blast. Yeah, I miss having you around, so we're gonna have to make sure
Well,
we.
we'll definitely have to do it a lot more. Just let me know and
Okay.
I should be have a lot more availability coming up soon. So
Yay! I love hearing that.
me
Goodness.
too.
I know. I bet. You know, when
That's
when
my
it's more
favorite.
freedom, more free time, that's always the best thing in the world. But if you guys check this out, that's great. It's on Tubi free, so don't spend any money on it. That's because then you might get a late fee if you return it late. You know. I mean, might. I don't
Oh,
know. Do we? Nobody has late fees anymore, really. So
that's
uh,
true.
people might not even know what
The
that means.
library.
Library, and then they also do still charge you like late fees and stuff. So
Mhm.
there you go. You could rack. I used to rack up a lot of money on late fees from the library, and then I just stopped going. I just buy movies at the library now.
Yeah.
Just simpler that way. All right. Well, thank you so much, and everybody else. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Join me tomorrow for a new episode.
Bye,
Bye.
guys.